Warming up. Test mic. Test. Okay, it's moving. If you are watching, this episode is a recorded live stream. The show will officially start in a few minutes. Feel free to jump forward or to watch us ramble as we prepare.
That assumes you're watching in the future. If you're watching in the present, I'd be very impressed if you jump forward. So let us know how you do that. Okay. Uh, so we are only just getting started with Hometown Cha 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 as feel good fare for a stressful work week. And ugh, I mean, I understood the general shape of it, but then to go through it with Toby is interesting. Uh, no, 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 no.
Yep, yep. Yep. Running now. Sharing.
I'm also typing up me. Yeah, and for other folks, yes, I know this is not an OBAR video, but there are OBAR videos. There are new OBAR videos again, but it may still confuse some people as they wander through this channel. That I will alternate between these Baduy Pride episodes and dumps from when we go out to OBAR. So it's good content for everyone, depending on what you like. But if you can support this too, that's cool. If not, for people who watch the podcast, stream, vlog, whatever, do watch our OPAR videos. Oh, also, and like support the fabulous performers because that's why I do it.
Hey, Andre. Long time no see.
Oh,
Glad to have
wow.
you with us.
Hello, hello, hello. I'm just in the process of sharing stuff to the feedables. Just trying to get people on board. But yeah, so I mean, as much as like Toby loves rom coms, and then I figured that things like Hometown Cha 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 would be in this shape. But they are taking like some interesting choices in how to do it.
That's your way of saying you're enjoying it.
Not yet. It's very cringy. especially especially that last one at episode 2. It's like, oh my god. These tourism rom-com videos. Try to fall in love with the stars and the location. But yeah, it's been a super long day.
Nose is acting up again.
Yeah, and it's you can blame the fan.
Or the
It's
lights.
pointing here. Or okay, I don't. Toby still thinks he's allergic to the lights. I don't know how that works, but sure.
Because I always get weird sniffly the moment the lights are strong.
You get weird sniffly when you move. Like before when we're heading to bed, in the span of walking from the dining table to beside the bed, suddenly he's sniffly.
We need haircuts.
Yeah.
Like super near the haircut.
You want to cut? We can do that later. You know, I'm like really quick. Meow, meow. Okay, we're getting haircuts after this. Okay. All right. I guess we can start. Sorry we're late. We finished the episode because Korean shows are like an hour and some minutes every time. It's like, what are these long episodes? Okay.
Let's start.
We'll start. So we're gonna roll the credits. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Oh yeah! Really great!
This is Toby.
Oops. I double clicked.
We are super rusty.
Sorry.
This is Toby.
and this is Rocky.
And if it's your first time here, we don't do that always, but welcome to Baduy Pride, our little space on the
Hooray,
internet
live production.
where we talk about anything we want.
It's completely unscripted, obviously, and not entirely accurate, but at least it's honest. Join us as we talk about everything and anything random live.
And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again. We do know that a majority of our audience are people who listen to the recording after it was recorded live
Yes.
as part of their background.
I accept that this has become a podcast for some people.
And that's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
I do just miss the interaction. So if you are there watching right now, know that we can't tell you're there until you send in comments.
Mm-hmm.
So friends like Andre and anyone else who's online, please feel free to join the conversation and send in comments so we can make it part of the discussion.
And for other people wandering in, like I said earlier, there will be more Obar videos. Just wait. Sorry, this is not one of them. I feel like we're getting a lot of like, oh, new update from the channel, and then oh, it's not Obar.
It's fine.
If
If it helps,
I'm trying to appeal to all.
Yeah, if it helps them get into geeky stuff, then great.
That is true.
Likewise, people who are here for the geeky stuff, when they see the Obar videos, what's this?
And now you also know who the person is who takes all these videos by hand. And man, I had fingers in the frame last time. It was a good night. All right.
So today is I forget the term, anticipated. Because I think that's what they
Like
call
mass?
that's what they call mass when it's a day ahead, right? When it's supposed to be a Monday session, but they do it on Sunday. So it's an anticipated mass. So this is an advanced episode of a Friday Geek Night. Because instead of Friday, we're holding it today on Thursday. We have plans on Friday.
We're going to Obar.
We're
So,
going to
and I think in general, like, I don't know, and we talked about this, like
That we might have to
the
shift.
Baduy Pride schedule may change once things start to get
and
better.
we might even shift Monday. It might just become a Tuesday, Thursday thing.
Maybe.
Because it makes more sense. Because Monday, Thursday shows don't make sense.
There are UB classes like that.
But Tuesday, Thursday shows make more sense.
So yeah, so we're figuring that out.
Today's topic is all about the Metaverse and the Multiverse because I tried to make sure it related to our Monday topic, which was Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, because we talked about Talisman Kingdom Hearts, the board game, which involved crossing over different Disney dimensions. Then now we're doing this.
Well,
So-
I thought it would be timely because everyone who's in the tech industry is all into the metaverse nowadays. It's the buzzword that's been overkilled by the fact that VR no longer sounds cool.
And this is all Zuckerberg's fault.
AR never.
And you have like a bunch of people asking like, oh, I thought Facebook was becoming Meta. Why is it
Mhm.
still Facebook? But now it's Facebook brought to you by Meta.
Mhm.
So we'll let's dig into that, and
Yes.
and it will indirectly touch on why a company like Facebook decided to pivot
Mhm.
and throw their branding money at something like Meta.
But then beyond just the metaverse, the name will also get gears turning for any geek that hears it and think about the multiverse, which is the big thing now in Marvel Comics.
It's always been a thing
Yeah, but in the cinematic
in the
universe.
cinematic universe. Yes, and it's the big
And
anticipation.
ironically, not just Marvel.
Yeah, well,
Everyone's doing multiversal
yeah,
stories now.
well.
So we might as well dig in, talk about it in all the ways we can, and get the show started.
Okay,
So do we start with meta first or multi? Because admittedly,
I think multi is
came
easier.
first.
Yeah,
And
it's,
multi came first.
yes,
Officially, the
and
term
Meta is sloppy seconds.
Why do you have to say that term? It makes me think something else. But officially, the term metaverse did start in 1992 by Neil Stephenson in his book Snow Crash.
Which is like in my queue. Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
I've now decreed I no longer have a reading backlog or reading queue. I have a river.
Now, you have to understand that the concept of a metaverse was formed separate from the concepts of cyberspace and all that because there are specific details that make something count as a metaverse experience.
Okay.
Cyberspace and all that, which used to be the dream thing of tech, is a wholly virtual world.
Hence, things like The Matrix, or even cooler, Johnny Mnemonic.
Or even further, Lawnmower Man.
yes,
Because Lawnmower Man was one of the earliest depictions of a cyberspace environment.
with what was at the time cutting edge
Yes.
CGI, which right now looks like nightmare fuel.
And in as much as there have been previous shows or previous movies that did deal with a virtual reality or a hologram world and this and that, it was Lawnmower Man that was one of the first ones to really try to say this is what it will look like because computers are generating the image.
And it like led to a whole generation of people like depicting surfing the web as
And-
like flying through
Yes,
bit
yes.
lines.
And the liquid metal morphe moments.
Oh, yeah,
which was
yeah.
super the thing.
I look at
Um,
you, entire Marvel 2099 line.
Now, what makes it a metaverse is the fact that it goes beyond the virtual. And while some might say, but it always went beyond the virtual, the concept of a metaverse was this attempt to make it converge in so many ways. Because you
Mhm.
have the physical world, you have the virtual world, and then we have, of course, the mixed reality, which um, the extended reality, which is composed of mixed reality, augmented reality, and so on and so forth.
AR, VR, RRR.
And in terms of the specifics of what makes one the one or the other, that really depends on you. Hey, Kenny. Kenny asks, "Are we in a metaverse right now?"
no.
If you believe the simulation theory that claims that supercomputers in a faraway future state of intelligence have created perfect simulations that we all actually do not realize we are in, and that's why we have deja vu and all this and that, then yes, we are in a
I am
metaverse.
programmed to say no.
I think it's Basilisk. Oh no, we're back at the Basilisk problem. If you don't know what we mean, look up the previous
Toby is
episodes.
always excited to bring in the basilisk.
Yes, because it's awesome.
It's that and the singularity.
It's so awesome. Okay, so
Metaverse.
the metaverse concept, of course, became much more popular because one, our technology has finally caught up.
Technology has super come a long way.
Mhm. Two, not just technology in general, but portable technology.
Mm.
Because remember, there was a point in time when, VR, yeah, that's cool and all, but you need a super heavy headset, you need a room that's super rigged for it. And now there are virtual reality headsets that the entire computer is the headset.
Mm-hmm.
There are, if you looked at previous VR rooms, escape rooms and the like, they had that large cable that's like an umbilical cord on the
Yeah,
ceiling.
because like all the data that needed to
You
transmit.
don't need those now.
They're all
because-
wireless now.
Yeah, thanks to micronization and all that, a lot of tech has gotten to the point that, well, as they say, your cell phone is far 100 times a better computer than the same computer that sent people to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So metaverse is now suddenly all live, and I think I will always feel that the ingredient that made Facebook go, oh, we can do that, will always go back to China.
This is always Toby's example. When Toby is trying to
Because
and
it captures-
surprisingly, we've been in this conversation a lot more these days. And what's a metaverse? And then Toby will bring up China. Go, Toby. Let's talk about China.
I need your help because I forgot the name.
WeChat. Toby keeps saying WhatsApp
I
or any
know,
other messaging
I
app.
know.
I'm waiting for it to say Kakao Talk. Okay.
So WeChat
10 cents WeChat.
WeChat is a perfect example of an app
That enables a metaverse to some
that,
degree.
yes, because it makes everything in the physical world now a mixed reality experience. And mixed reality means you accomplish things with the help of technology that's working in a virtual area.
Mm-hmm.
So reservations, payments, your medical history, your location, identification, etc., etc., etc. All that is already stored in the whole system of WeChat, to the point that, as you've seen in the videos and the like, many people in China don't even carry money anymore.
Yeah, because it's all on WeChat.
They don't bother with. They don't even have to bring IDs and stuff because again, all your data is already there. So when they go around, um, the app is detected. It pays for your bus fare. It pays for the Uber you rent.
Yeah, there's a lot of contactless payments tied to it.
and
and
it's
registrations.
amazing and it's terrifying because it also means you've now given off all your personal information.
It helps when your government controls
Mhm.
everything.
Now, that exists.
Yeah.
That works. And if you think about that in theory, it's terrifying. But the fact that it's being done now
Mhm.
basically tells people like Facebook, oh sorry, Meta, hey,
Hi, Let. Thanks for
so
dropping
that
by.
can be done.
Hmm.
And thus Meta is born.
Yeah, and it's and then we knew. I mean, if you look back now, Facebook was obviously on this trajectory the
Mm,
moment they invested heavily into Oculus.
yes.
So why would a company known for social media put so much money into VR technology
Yeah.
when people do not engage with social media using VR?
Mhm.
But so that was it. That they were trying to build this path. It's sort of like how Google, as much as they're a search engine, does self-driving cars.
Mm,
They tried wearable tech. They're always experimenting with things, and it's just these companies trying to continue to expand, innovate, and be more than what they are today.
mm.
And so now we just have this metaverse thing.
So Andre shares
This is
until
multiverse. We can talk
yeah,
about that.
until now can't follow the multiverse of DC. We'll get into that in detail. Marvel I can tolerate pa. Admittedly, both are tolerable depending on your amount of exposure.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
both are terrifying and how much layers of is there a term for multiverses?
No, you just assume it's multiverse.
Because it's a multiverse now, but there's multiple multiverses.
Is it really a difference? Because it's just ultimately more reality, so it's still the same multiverse.
But the other one was destroyed for this one to exist. So it's like a pre-multi.
Well, that's a
Anyway,
that's a DC problem, obviously, because which they have aptly called crises.
yes, we'll get into that in detail. And then Andre also adds, in terms of metaverse, I guess we can reach the level of Ready Player One. Na Facebook is our version. Okay, so this is the thing about metaverse that people don't realize. Many are still seeing it only as Ready Player One, which is alternate life, online purchases, customized avatar.
And it doesn't help that to some degree the launch videos that Facebook put out
Kind of showed
kind
that.
of stress
Mhm.
that side of it. Yeah.
But you have to consider all the other aspects of your mixed reality life that will be affected. In one of the research slides I had, so you have everything
Toby
from
has slides.
yes, so you have everything from text messaging, SMS to Twitter, social commentary, and the like. But then you have perpetual text stored, which is internetarchive.org, for example, and the like, which is again stuff that you should consider as part of the metaverse. Imagine literally no longer having to go to libraries and universities for research because
Hmm.
they're all digitally there as well. Images from the basic ones of images and apps to more social related ones to Instagram and the like. Do we have perpetual image libraries? Not yet. And in many ways, that's why the NFT ecosystem is trying to form because they want to already be able to state if these digital images are out there and we have them in perpetuity, I can say they're mine.
Because our first goal is ownership, more than anything else, which I feel is the wrong way to go, but okay.
Same thing with audio, with gaming, VR, MR experiences, and then there's the physical experiences. When you think about physical experiences, most immediately go to shopping. I want to shop. I do this online. It comes to me in the real world. Some go as far as thinking of the more private side of things. I can do this with the app,
I need to look
and
at this whole
I
serendipitously.
help that person get off because the device responds to my money and stuff like that.
Right?
Right?
Because the device
Because there
responds to
are
my
there
money.
are those remote. I forgot the term for it, but there are
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
remote vibrators now that
And I,
that
I
that
remember, on a less sexual note, I did like what was it? There was the beer drinking. There was that linked beer drinking system. Na parang I forgot how it worked, but essentially it's like you would mount, you would have a pad for your drink, and then based on like I think you could transmit temperature, or you could may vibration, may
mm-hmm,
haptic feedback
mm-hmm,
transmitted to the glass to correspond to when the other person is holding their glass and things like that.
mm.
Well, I forgot what it is.
And there's a lot of new technology now that's happening both in gaming and in personal pleasure. Um, of all these nubby things on things you wear in order to help the haptic feedback moment. So like there are no those gloves that if you turn them inside out, they look like a tongue of some animal because it has all these little nubs and stuff, and
Mm-mm.
it's meant to like exert these small points of force.
Mm-mm.
So when you grab a ball in VR space, you actually feel the shape of
Yeah.
the ball, and stuff like that. So with the metaverse idea there, and now we have big money flowing in that direction. We can only wait and see how far it will go. Many are already diving in to try to be part of that initial wave of, staking in terms of, oh, we have this established, we have that established. A lot of metaverse attempts right now are still focused on the MMORPG concept of we have a virtual world that's persistent, so
Mm-mm.
everyone can go here and do whatever
And
they
drop in and
want,
out. Yeah.
and they can customize their house, their looks, their etc. But we don't really have yet one that has that and has connected to a market system beyond themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The closest we had was Second Life.
So, Toby, what was Second Life?
Second Life was weird. There's no other way to describe it because
It was
it
ambitious.
was so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Second Life was an attempt to do an MMORPG inspired by GeoCities, wherein
Yes.
everyone can go to Second Life and literally come up and create with something of their own. You wanted to do fashion, then you can go to Second Life, create your fashion line, sell your avatar costumes. I wanted to do a role playing game thing, then I could create my own world that does that. Someone else wants to do that just to hang out with friends, they could do so as well. So it did have so much potential to be the beginnings of a metaverse because it already had an economy beyond the virtual world.
Mm-mm.
People were making money out of Second Life. Many fashion approaches were being digitized into Second Life.
Yep. I think wasn't there a fashion show? I can't remember if there was a
Mhm.
fashion show.
I remember there were events already.
Okay, notable events and influence.
And there was the school banning.
Okay, no, that wasn't it. Virtual riot. Okay, griefing, denial of service. Let's see, these are like just the bad stuff. But like, I know there was like things. Anyway, but I think that so as much as there are MMORPG worlds
Mhm.
and stuff, that's not quite fully metaverse concepts. I think when you really start crossing over, nga, it's going to be things like hence the videos like the Facebook launch videos, like
Mhm.
things like if I can in the metaverse go to my government agency and file my paperwork
Mhm.
and it counts in real life, then that's like a true metaversal
Yes.
link between the two. And I didn't have to leave my home because
Yes.
I navigated it with my avatar and all that.
And that's the, I guess, the long term goal of an actual functioning metaverse, that it is not seen as just, I was about to say commercial, but that's not the word. It's
It's not a separate reality,
and it's not
but
just
it's
recreational.
a bridge. It's a
Yes.
connection to another aspect of life.
So there's a storm raging, you can't go to work, then you can go to work in the metaverse version of your office, and that's considered you're at work.
Hmm.
Um, you need to file papers, as you mentioned, then you don't need to physically go there.
And
Um,
then weird stuff like I can make a doctor's appointment and then go to the doctor in the metaversal environment. But then this turns into a video conference.
mm,
But then he's able to check your vitals and stuff remotely. I mean,
mm,
like things like that. It's like, I mean, the sky is the limit, really,
mm,
in how it can go. So Ready Player One kind of what touched on that to some degree, which is the easier example.
mm.
But
Although if
yeah,
you think about it, Ready Player One was still limited to just the VR side of things.
yes, yes.
It didn't really bridge that gap of everything was interconnected, like WeChat. It always goes back to WeChat.
So given that though, and then I can only sorry. There's a comment like Andrea was saying, like maybe Google and Meta should work together. Well, only if Facebook's metaverse attempt was not a strictly commercial one,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel it is, and it's not inherently bad. Although these days capitalism is really not popular for a number of reasons in
Mm-hmm.
tech. But the fact that Facebook has realigned its branding and created a whole other company for it is a definitely a business interest to kind of be the first major player in the space
Mhm.
and trying to eke out a line. In the same way that you have a bunch of indie companies who are rushing to get metaversal type environments out
Yes.
because they're also, I mean, when you think about, when I think about claim, you know, staking out
Staking
claims,
claims. Yeah.
okay, my best example is still that scene in Far and Away when like Nicole Kidman.
Okay, I'm sorry for a brief moment. I was thinking the far side. I
No,
don't know
no,
why.
no, them literally
Far
running
away.
across trying to claim land, and it was like free plaza. And it's just wherever you first stick your flag.
Now, now,
That
now that leads to the biggest issue that will really be something to deal with in the metaverse is the trust and the recognition of things,
hmm.
because
And Ings
once
is here. Hello, Ings.
yeah, once we're in a metaverse environment, then national boundaries are gone.
That is something.
There is no more actual physical boundaries, which then brings the big question: then whose laws apply?
Then we're finally going to be true. Dun dun dun. Netizens.
Netizens.
I hate that term.
Now, with that need for trust and accountability brings the question of regulation and control. And I don't mean both terms in the bad way, but I mean, if someone steals from you, who
Who?
handles that?
Yeah.
Who
Which
resolves
cops
it?
do you need?
And it's also a question of whose decision making will you be okay with. I mean, if you were in a transaction with someone in Germany and that guy turned out to be a scam artist, will it be the German authorities dealing with it? Will it be the Philippine authorities? Will it be a solely virtual authority handling it? And will that be fair for all three concerned?
And how do you become a virtual authority? And like, so
Mm,
there's it's an exciting concept, but then there's also a lot that we haven't quite mapped out.
mm.
And I don't think the answer is merely an automatic extension of current
Yes.
national boundaries.
Yes.
It's like space. It's like we can't have countries claiming portions of the sky saying this is China space, this is
Mm,
US space only.
mm,
That's why you have things like the International Space Station as like a neutral ground because space is like of public interest. And so it's the same thing with something like the metaverse.
mm.
It's another realm to explore, another realm to define, and the like. And there has to be a way to figure out a way to approach it that doesn't rely on national borders, political
Hey,
borders.
Mark, we've sort of just started, but we're still in the metaverse side of things. We're not in the
I don't
multiverse
know.
side
We're
of
like
things
20
yet.
minutes in. Okay.
So, beyond who takes charge and who has the responsibilities, we also have to consider the fact that um, for any society to function, there has to be an agreement of things. Let's face it, money is only the value it is because people have decided that's the value it is.
Yes.
Same thing with art, same thing with everything. That's the main reason why NFTs and all these cryptocurrencies are now in the rise because it's decentralized. Um, Value is being forged,
Assigned.
formed, assigned, lost, and it's creating its own ecosystem. Bitcoin has risen so high and fallen so many times as well in the time since it started. And these are all the roots building to something that might be a decentralized form of citizenship as well. Because if you can claim that this economy is functioning, then in theory, eventually someone will have enough financial clout to say, then these are my people. And I can pay you to be okay with that.
Something like that. Yes.
So it's only a matter of time till netizens are a real term.
I
Oh,
hate
I wonder if
netizens.
someone actually owns the term netizen.
Define own a term.
Maybe there's an
A trademark.
NFT.
When it not an NFT. Okay, okay, but I personally hate NFTs with a vengeance. I mean, I get the basic principle. I get the comparing it to art gallery
Mhm,
argument
mhm,
of NFTs, but
mhm,
I still because it's decentralized but claiming to be an authority. I
mhm.
think that's the main irony for
Yeah.
me. It's it. it doesn't
Okay.
want to be regulated, but it's claiming to be the one that can assign value.
So I think that's more blockchain officially than NFTs, right?
No,
Because
but NFTs are built on the blockchain,
yes,
and
and
you cannot
but
divorce
but
that
the
concept.
verification system is the blockchain,
Yes, yes,
wherein there are things that are moving in the blockchain, and there are independent people being able to check if it's valid.
yes.
And that's because since we don't have a accepted checker, then it's a quote
Anyone
unquote
goes. Yeah.
crowd-funded checking, which is the blockchain system.
Mm-mm.
Um, and that's why NFTs now exist, because using that blockchain, look, everyone's verifying you're the owner.
Yes. Blockchain is not necessarily NFT. NFT is not necessarily
Yes.
just blockchain. Hence, Kickstarter saying they're getting into the blockchain doesn't mean they're getting into NFTs yet.
Now, there's a lot of theft in NFT space, according to Inks. That's because it's decentralized.
Yeah.
And that's how it will be in any situation where you are not doing it with the protections of an established system, no matter how unfair that system may be.
Mm-mm.
Because one can say, buti nga it's decentralized. So, if I sell this for 100, I get 100.
Mm-mm.
Not really, it's just there's still gas fees and all that for online payments. But compared to if you're going to sell it in the Changge, and then you have to buy the booth for
You have to rent.
1,000,
Yeah.
and then you'll have to pay this and that for ganyan. So that's supposedly the allure of the decentralization. But the people are forgetting that there are so many other aspects that they're choosing to overlook just
Mhm.
because they're not dealing with established systems.
So yeah. So back to metaverse though. It's like so I think on the one hand it's way too early to say if Facebook's particular effort. I'm still gonna call them Facebook. Sorry, I know they're Meta, but it's a really bad company name with a logo that looks like someone else's logo.
Yes.
But ultimately, it's definitely too early to know how far they're gonna go.
Mm.
The concept videos that were shared are just that. They're concept videos.
Mm.
Thanks for animating. It doesn't mean anything.
Mm-mm.
It's a vision, but I still feel it's a vision that's still very tied to the VR interpretation of things. It's still very Lawnmower Man. I'm gonna for today let's celebrate Lawnmower Man.
That's also because of the limitations of wanting to hit a wider market base.
Yeah, and they're trying to make it in a way present it in a way that is understandable.
Yeah. Because you could have like super high definition 3D artwork and all that, but then what? Only people with the best internet connections, with the best devices, will see that.
Yeah, it's like your darn 4K content. I don't have if I don't it's similar sorry, and it's similar to HD. Like when you think about it, how do you get HD quality video? First you need HD quality material to
Mhm.
view. You need HD capable
Connections.
devices, HD capable connections if you're streaming it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of like factors that go into it.
Friction points.
Just because you have an HD capable TV does not mean everything you now watch is in HD.
Yeah.
If anything, over the air TV, the standard broadcast look worse on HD televisions
Yes.
because you can see the imperfections even more. And same thing like this, like because there are a lot of enabling mechanisms needed for for the metaverse to work, then naturally it's going to shift towards in the first few years, decades of this technology, it's going to favor more advanced or more or wealthier countries that have access to better infrastructure, that have the resources to invest in the equipment needed to enable these platforms, and so on and so forth.
On the brighter side of things, though, we are in a world where the concept of smart devices and Internet of Things is no longer just theoretical. Remember, there was a time when people would be like, "Oh, can you imagine? You could like we say, I'm home house,' and the house lights up." And now that's actually even accomplished by people who don't live in smart houses, because you can buy smart appliances.
Yes.
You can buy apps and devices that
And
you'll
our
hook up.
friend.
Diba? You'll hook up to the light bulb. You'll have the device on your TV, and suddenly you have voice control to them to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
It's gotten to that point that innovation has allowed the gaps in technology to be covered to
And
some degree.
yeah, and then like Amazon or something have those weird like those small devices that you could put in your cabinets to prompt when you need to restock items and things like that. So then you could trigger an Amazon local order.
One of the ones I found so cute was this actual physical machine. So it's a tiny robot
Okay.
that's wirelessly connected.
Okay.
So when you give the command, it moves, so it will push a physical switch. Because some devices won't work with
Yeah.
a cutting current system. So
Yes.
it has a physical little robot that allows you to flick the switch physically. I love those. And um, again, the internet, we've gotten to the point. I still remember when the internet was new, bulletin board systems were the only way to surf the internet. The idea of downloading a movie was like, oh God, imagine if this will ever happen. Because just a
Because
JPEG,
downloading an image was
yes,
like
just a
an
JPEG
adventure.
took minutes.
You
And
remember? You remember how was this? I remember in my early one of my early web development classes,
mhm,
and there's a bit of a discussion on the pros and cons of using JPEG images versus GIFs.
mhm,
They're both compressed,
mhm,
but GIFs naturally had fewer colors. It was limited to
yes.
256, whereas JPEG had the wider range of colors, but at a different
But
compression.
that was if you were willing to have dithering in your image.
Yes, and they load in different ways
Mhm,
because GIFs load layer by layer, hence interlaced,
yeah, they interlace.
whereas JPEGs go line by
Yeah.
line. So it was a question of was this the user experience you wanted for your web page? Do you want them to see a blurry image and
Mhm.
it becomes sharper, GIF, or did you want them to have a crisper image but it loads line by line?
And
And
then
you literally had web pages where you're waiting for all the
yeah,
images to render.
and then eventually you had the different file formats that came out when people realized, oh, these compressed states are terrible for print. So Pict and Targa started to
Yeah,
appear.
and it's and the stupid things like when people wonder why when they put a JPEG into a zip file, it doesn't get smaller because it's already compressed. But
Mhm.
we're just rambling. Okay.
So the metaverse offers a lot of promise.
Yeah.
It is literally a new frontier that offers a lot of opportunity. It will be terrifying at times. It will be seemingly crazy at some points because I'm already waiting for the people who will have enough momentum to say I'm a citizen of nothing but the internet.
Yeah,
Because
I feel like that's going to be like the one of those key
and I'm
milestones,
sure there
so to
have
speak.
been some already before,
Yeah.
but I'm waiting for the point that there's enough clout that when they make that statement, an airline will go, "Oh, that's fine. We'll accept that passport, and you
Mm-mm.
can travel." And a country will go, "Oh, that's okay. We recognize you because you've also been helping us." And ganyan, ganyan. So that's a bit scary to think about it.
It I don't necessarily scary per
No,
se. It's
I'm
just
scared.
different.
I'm scared because I could imagine a large majority of people who will want to run to that one instead of being in the country they're a national
And then
of.
the concern of once there are multiple virtual countries, then what?
Mm.
Then what? Then like which one are you a part of? And then you get stupid things like what if there's conflict between what does a metaverse war look like?
Mm.
Or even just a metaverse border dispute.
We do know that technology has gotten to the point that there have been cyber attacks and and hacking attempts that are science fiction till recently. Everything from um, remote sexual devices suddenly holding
Oh,
the person hostage
because they're locked.
to smart homes suddenly not recognizing the owners. We know that in the cryptocurrency and NFT circuits, the wallets are the primary target of people for scams because since it's decentralized, the moment you go for a transaction, even if you know who did it, you don't really have a way to retrieve it or turn it around. There's no laws governing it. So, sorry na lang.
Mm-hmm.
So you have like instances in Axie Infinity, which is one of the more popular games that uses NFTs, wherein some group made these bold claims in various social networks that oh, we have this new thing coming up. Sign up early, pay the small fee, so you'll be part of the reservation group. A lot of people dove in and
Mm-hmm.
threw in money, and
And
then
then
they
nothing
disappeared.
happened. Then they just ran with the money.
And well, Axie's not at fault. It's not their fault.
Yeah,
But again,
it's just a rival company.
since it's decentralized, no one really had a way to check and balance why this group created that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the world we are in, and we can only wait and see how the metaverse will organize those things.
And and I think if anything, it'll be. I feel like we're not going to be able to come up with one metaverse right
Mm.
away. I think it's going to be different efforts that may or may not link. I mean, because they're just a lot of things
Yeah.
to figure out. Um, but you know, I feel like if it were any other company than Facebook that made their big metaverse push
Mm.
announcement, then I think we would be a little less skeptical about it. I mean, I know this is partly Facebook's way of distancing itself
Mhm.
from its problematic social media only side,
Mhm.
given all the political challenges and whatnot. It's it has PR efforts it needs to do.
Mhm.
Will this be enough? I don't know. And then I don't know, but at the same time, it does need a big company sort of to push things along. It's like things like Elon Musk. Like he's not the nicest guy around.
Mhm.
He's not exactly 100% altruistic and popular,
Mm.
but you need someone ridiculously rich and driven like that to push things forward. His efforts with the space program of privatized space exploration are insane.
Mm.
And that is why America, without manned missions, and because they killed the shuttle program,
Mhm.
is still able to maintain assets in space because they've been now purchasing
Through him.
rocket time.
Yeah.
Through SpaceX. So there is something to be said
Mm.
about people with ridiculously large wallets putting their money behind moon rocket
So what if they
ideas.
become the countries? Are you a Muskian?
Then it's really Cyberpunk was right. Good
Diba?
job,
Cause,
Gibson.
cause they
We
have,
can't get away from the
cause they have
megacorps.
the clout
Mm-mm.
of what we call megacorps in science fiction. Diba? They are already making changes, and I was smiling
I
earlier.
will just not work for Wayland Yutani.
I was smiling earlier because the Dan Brown book that I was reading, Deception Point, the main story arc was that NASA faked this thing because they wanted to make sure they stayed relevant so privatization of space does not happen.
I realize I make this face now both when Toby brings up Dan Brown and when rom coms get really cheesy.
Wait till Dan Brown writes a rom com. Anyway, so that's what's happening in the real world. The metaverse is forming. We're seeing the beginnings of it. We will probably see a lot of attempts and failures to come. We will probably see a lot of outlandish attempts. But in many of the outlandish attempts, we might see seeds of what may be stronger things. How many people laughed when Bitcoin first came into the picture?
Mm-hmm.
And where's
And
Bitcoin now?
now there are so many
And
currencies.
one can say, yeah, Bitcoin's still failing anyway. The fact that after so many years it's still around, that still beats more than so many other companies that tried and died.
And despite how many traditional financial institutions like banks and stuff try to
Not
shut down
yeah,
access to
or not
cryptocurrency,
not
not
interact
deal
with
with
it.
them,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
alive.
it's still thriving,
Mhm.
and some people will only transact in Bitcoin.
Yeah. So one can only wait and see how the world will change as we literally do combine the virtual world and the mixed realities into one experience. In the world of fiction, however, it has been happening in more ways than one.
Yeah, we're trying to segue back to multiverse.
Yes. So the Marvel Cinematic Universe has obviously embraced the multiverse as a major story arc now.
But it's also okay. But I feel like what's this, and it's not bad because it's something that was already in the comics. But
Yes.
it's also there are practical considerations on why they have to go the multiverse route. It's the same way that Doctor Who developed
I was about
regenerations.
to say
Of course, you
it was
were.
their attempt to do a Doctor Who
Yeah,
thing.
because it's a valid way to explain why your lead actor needs to change over
Hmm.
time. In this case, we already cycled through most of the actors
Hmm.
from phases 1 to 3, and now we need to bring in new blood.
It also allows you to make mistakes and
Yes.
then kill off that line if it doesn't
Sweep it
work.
under the rug.
So they can literally later introduce
Wow, wow, wow.
a female Doctor Strange, for example, and see if it will click. And then if it doesn't, okay, that was just a guest appearance and stuff like that. It's a lot of potential, and it was interesting to see Marvel take that route. It wasn't surprising, but it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Given after the Infinity Gauntlet, um, multiverse as a next focus was a bit of a really, because you already went this big and now you're gonna try to do something much bigger but not involve the Infinity Gems. So that's gonna be a very difficult thing to follow because now everything else will suddenly be the greatest artifacts that were totally not present or forgotten during the Infinity Crisis.
But at the same time, I mean, you could argue the same could have been said for Marvel Comics when they first went down the Infinity Gauntlet road.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's it. Nothing's going to beat the Gauntlet. But, they've survived. And they've also managed to stress that that the Infinity Gems are not the be all end all
Mm-hmm.
thing. And not everybody is chasing after them.
And
It's just like,
admittedly,
yeah,
they did show that in the cinematic universe.
yes.
Because in the comics, the Infinity Gems were super strong.
But it has a weird rise and fall because like Infinity Gauntlet, and then we formed the Infinity Watch, and then Infinity
Mm.
War, blah blah blah, and then they kind of died out, and then they became interesting again, and they had the Infinity thing in the more recent Avengers comics and
Crusade
stuff.
and
No, even
Crusade was
well
before
after
it, yeah.
Crusade, yung modern era where the Infinity Gems kind of resurfaced, but we lost the Infinity Watch for a while kasi nga it wasn't popular as a comic, and then it's like how many stories can you have about people trying to get the Infinity Gems from them,
Yes.
So it they needed to branch out. And so I'm sure if the comics survived and they've learned from the comics, then the movies will has a template to follow. And the MCU is always interesting as a creature in itself, and like how it is evolved over time and how it twists or adapts the comic material into a way that works with the movie
Yeah,
format.
there is that feeling of they kind of learned that you have to somehow still draw from the comics.
Mm-mm.
You can't just really take your own take at it.
Venom.
And he drew naman from the comics.
The same could be said from the very first Fantastic Four movie.
Baka lang the wrong ones. Anyway,
Yeah, I was waiting for Carnage to surf the internet with his symbiote.
now what frustrates me is that everyone's all hoo-haing over Marvel doing the multiverse concepts when DC was at it way back and
And again, it was a corporate decision.
and was already doing it in TV
Yeah.
before Marvel thought of doing it.
But I guess because movies are such big things.
Yes.
I mean, and what was that recently? We were, where were we? Where did we watch that? Where they were defining the differences between TV. Oh, sorry, it was the Shonda Rhimes masterclass. But the thing about TV and movies and what sets them apart, and like when you're
Because
trying
the
to think
cliffhangers for commercials.
when you're trying to think of writing, TV, you come up with concepts, but you don't think of an ending. Movies, you have to tell a linear arc and then end
You
it.
have to have a payoff.
Yeah,
In TV, your payoff is every cliffhanger because you have to get them back after a commercial break.
and not just that, but even the way characters are written, it's like because you get characters to grow, explore, and
Mhm.
change. And the worst TV shows are the ones where the characters are one dimensional and
Mhm.
don't develop. It's the ones that we're invested in what's going to happen to them. Then that becomes interesting. So, uh, in that regard, I mean, like the multiverse stuff. That's why it seemed a bit more ambitious for on the movie level.
Mhm.
To kind of do that because yes, the TV narrative super supports it because it's an ongoing story. You can keep pushing it. Hence, you have things like Buffy leading to Angel, leading to whatnot.
Mhm.
But to do it on the movie scale, when considering we were already on our umpteenth iteration of Batman, diba? That we keep going through these cycles of new Batman and new Superman and stuff, and like they that's the achievement that Marvel decided, bam, let's make a plan.
Mhm.
Similar to how you plot out these comics, but still to do it on the scale of a movie, of not a movie, but a series of movies
Yes.
planned out in phases. I mean, whether or not you think Endgame was a great movie, it is a impressive narrative achievement
Yes.
in movie making to have this interconnected thing across so many titles, so many years.
Across different creative teams.
Yes.
Mhm.
So I mean, it doesn't mean that every aspect of it perfectly meshed with the
Mhm.
others, and then you have the redheaded stepchildren like Marvel Agents of Shield, but it was a noble attempt, and and it's not a bad thing. And now we're trying to get into the next phase, and
Mhm.
that's why the slate of movies announced already is insane. But stressing the multiverse only, and this I go back to the Doctor Who theory where but it's also because nga a bunch of actor contracts have ended
Mm.
and they can't use the same people, so they have to cycle the stories and bring in new heroes and stuff. And
Mhm.
I think they're on the right track. I really do. Now, but Marvel may have been the first to like be very successful with it on a movie level,
Mhm.
not necessarily the first to do it on a comic book level, because DC is the one that started naming their Earths like, and so many numbered things. Um, but there are actually a lot of different aspects, and I think that's a Toby was like super excited to talk about different examples of multiversal narratives in different media
Mhm.
as part of this discussion.
Because there's, I guess, the earliest.
Just bring up Konami
Well,
already.
the earliest multiverse ideas were
Okay.
always crossovers and shared universe moments.
Okay.
And in my case, as a kid, the two big ones, which was Konami World.
Name is struggles. We got a
Um,
prompt.
that was a 1988 game on the family computer that had everyone from Mikey of Goonies to King Kong and so many other characters all in one single game. It was a platformer where you had Konami One and Konami Lady who could switch into the other characters and use their powers. Um, so
This is not Smash Brothers, but it had a similar like tapping
yeah,
into
but look at
different
the
things.
list. You have Simon Belmont of Castlevania.
Okay.
You have Mikey of Goonies. You have this Moa head from the Gradius series. You had King Kong from King Kong. You had what's this? Uh, the Viper from Gradius. Well, Twin B was present as well.
How is Twin B present? It was a ship.
Yes,
Yes, is the answer.
there are stages where the ships were needed.
Pa, 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 pa,
So
pa,
it was such
pa,
a
pa, pa, pa,
you
pa.
know the closest thing that tried to best it back then when I was young was Mega Man, in the sense that, oh, look at this guy can change all these powers, but it was one person.
And it was still like one reality.
Yeah,
It's like
it was different
it's
worlds,
Dr. Wily
but it's all the
and
Mega
all
Man
these
world.
darn robots, right?
But
Okay.
here it was like I'm playing this game and then I watch the Goonies movie and I'm like, wait, that's the character. How is it in the game? And this is a
Mhm.
Japanese game that I'm playing that doesn't give me any English while I'm playing except for the names.
Yes.
So you can just imagine how my brain was sobrang mind blown that moment. The other one a bit later was the TV show Captain N.
Captain and
And
the Game Master.
Captain N was a TV series, an animated show around 1989 to 1991. It was, I guess you could say, one of the bigger marketing attempts of Nintendo to reach out to an American market.
Yes.
And it basically
Oh
featured
man, and I had the Valiant comics. Anyway,
it featured Kevin Keane, who was a teenage leader and the protagonist of the
he's an
series.
original character for the show.
He had a power pad, a Nintendo shaped controller that allowed him to stop time, leap over objects, basically do things platformer characters do.
Power Pad was like the it thing. Like, oh my god, you're rich and cool if you had a Power Pad, which was basically a Nintendo controller attached to a glove. But okay.
But then you had different characters from different shows, everything from Castlevania, Kid Icarus, Metroid, Adventures of Link.
Mega Man.
They were all basically
Mega Man was
characters.
not as cool as he could have been.
Yeah.
That show. Anyway.
And then Mother Brain was the one of the big enemies, but so were the others. Eggplant Wizard, of course, was one of the key ones. Um, King Hippo from Punch Out was there as well. So again, it was a wait. How is this happening? Why are they
Mhm.
all in this one game? And it's one thing to think of games as just having a lot of characters. Street Fighter had a lot of characters. A lot of other fighting games before had different characters to choose from. But it's another thing to realize these are from different games.
Yeah, and it took a while to we got to that. I mean, to be fair, even so now you've reached points like where Mortal Kombat has like, oh my god, a gazillion guest stars
Mm.
already,
Mm-mm.
and then even Street Fighter over time it like crossed over into the other Capcom fighting games.
Mm.
Then you had Marvel versus Capcom,
And then
kind
Smash,
of bringing things
and then
together.
Smash Brothers has now just everyone, including
People from other studios.
yes. Did you ever think you'd be at a point in time in your life where a
Sora.
Nintendo game would feature a Sega character?
Yeah, right.
That was
Right.
unthinkable.
When before, though, that was like the question you would always get asked, like, are you Nintendo or
Mm.
Sega? It's the proto question because in high school you get asked like, are you rock or
Mm.
metal or something or hip hop?
And in
Um,
many ways, that was what made Kingdom Hearts also such a treat when it first came out.
yeah,
To realize you were now playing a game that connected all these Disney properties
and
into one world.
Square games because why not?
And I know that deep down, I really, really wished that Kingdom Hearts 2 or Kingdom Hearts 3 was then an exploration of all the Squaresoft games, just so that it would be an interesting, you're
But
jumping.
clearly, someone has pays majority of the money in that project.
Yes. Which is why when it appears in other games like Smash Brothers, oh look, certain people disappear.
Or even when you get to weirder things like if you go to Disneyland, it's very rare that Disneyland has featured anything from
Mm.
Kingdom Hearts because of the complexity of licensing. So that's just a thing. Okay.
Then there's Dark Tower. We have to mention Dark Tower.
Okay, I have mixed feelings about this. I mean, I love the Dark Tower series. I was very
I think
involved
we
when I
have
was
to
reading
mention
about
Dark
it.
Tower to the very least because it did it before Ready Player One did it.
Yeah, and just that the core element of the Dark Tower, whether you read the books or watched the movie, but the Dark Tower as a construct
Mm-hmm.
exists in all realities. That's like one of the universal truths of it, and thus there is a linkage between the world of Roland Deschain and the Dark Tower
Mm-hmm.
to our world, or at least a version of Earth that includes characters like Jake and whatnot, um, and kind of fascinating. But it also led to a really janky. What was that? I forget if it was book 5 or 6, where we literally had golden snitches as explosive devices, and I kid you not, guys like dressed like Doctor Doom, robots dressed like Doctor Doom
Mm-hmm.
attack people, but without explicitly stating and all that. But it's just like really we went this route, but I get it. It was a crossover attempt. It made sense, and it was another excuse for Stephen King to appear in his own book
Mm-hmm.
because that's how much crossing over it had to have. That they had to go to Maine and bring him in. So things like that. So take it as you will, but it's still a good series. Still a good series. It's just that aspect of it was not my favorite, but I like the thing about the tower being everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
because it included things like in like the regular human world where some of our characters are from. Um, if you pay attention, like you could see which parts of that Earth correspond to the 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 Dark Tower
Mm-hmm.
realm because there are things like the beams that sort of determine a lot of the energy flow, and you could figure out where the beams were
Mm-hmm.
in Earth and stuff like that. So that was kind of cool.
There was also, of course, the Chronicles of Amber. Roger
Zelazny.
Zelazny, who whose main characters, whose main cast of characters in the book were basically the only real people among all the world of shadows, because all the other worlds, which includes all the alternate worlds, fictional worlds, and imagined worlds we could ever think of, do exist, and they're all different shadows. And the main characters can literally just go between any shadow and visit them as they want. What other metaverses do you remember?
To be fair, like I was always what's this? Oh, but there's even things like, and okay. There's a difference between metaverse and shared universe.
Mm,
Okay, because there is like that running theory that what's this? Stephen King novels.
all share.
A lot of
Yeah.
them have the same connective tissue.
Yes.
Things like even the stand and stuff. They all take place in a similar area. More often than not, a lot of them reference Bangor, Maine, and all these things.
Similarly, back when they were still doing things and were riding the wave of popularity, um, the different uh, Lost, Cloverfield,
Oh, the Abrams
yeah,
verse.
which was
Yeah.
like they were all supposedly also connected into one world and not really.
It's like even people trying to push the Pixar theory that all Pixar movies are
Yes.
connected somehow. So it's not necessarily metaversal, but because they're trying to push for one universe.
Excuse me.
But it has similar connective tissue.
Mhm.
So, but I've generally, and okay, if you go all the way back, like when you think about what metaverses are, so they're alternate realities, and because the previous thing was like there is a universe which is everything, but then what if there was something else outside the everything, and there are multiple everythings, and
Mhm.
it's kind of a never ending like scale that you can go to.
Mhm.
Hence, Toby like asking if there's a term for multiple multiverses, but
Well,
I think it just multiverse is expanding out
well,
further.
that's where DC tried to one up everyone
Mm-mm.
with their recent attempts of the multiversity line,
Yeah.
wherein the basic premise was all the alternate realities and multiverses and universes did happen.
Basically, people didn't like New 52, and they figured we need to find a way to justify that, hey, New 52 still happened. We stand by it. But everything that previously happened, that
Also
happened too.
happened.
Things before the first crisis, that happened too. And, it's okay. I'll take it. At the same time, bit of a cop out, but I
Mhm.
understand you're a business. You need to keep things running. I mean, you just go with it. It's like Marvel. I mean, when Marvel did Secret Wars and they got rid of their Ultimates universe,
Mhm.
and mashed it into our existing. So then you have things like Miles Morales now existing in the
Yes.
same realm as Peter Parker. And you just kind of, but they're forever like just accepting the fact that they are refugees of another universe,
Yes.
which is like,
Because they
it's a cool concept.
and they kind of made practically all the main characters refugees from another universe.
Hmm.
Because in the Secret War storyline, that was the main point, right? They were all trying to escape the collapsing universe.
Yeah. But then,
A
uh,
good way to get rid of Fantastic Four.
and now they have to bring him back. Oh, they did, but but the at the same time you have the weird like sub multiverse explorations.
Mhm.
So whether it's things like the Captain Britain Corps that for a while tried to police everything. There was that mutant book also, The Exiles, I think, that
Mhm.
went into multiversal
Mhm.
regulation to some
Mhm.
degree. Even the Spider Verse side of things, the fact that for some reason Spider-Man is the most important thing and
Mhm.
exists in so many universes.
And in one version is even more religious, godlike than superpowered superhero.
Mm-mm. So
That's when he gave birth into himself, right?
all these different things, and it's kind of cool. It gets a little dizzying sometimes, but it ultimately, why it works for things like comics and things of a renewing nature like the MCU, is that it allows for continuous, ongoing storytelling
Mhm.
because of infinite possibilities. I mean, it's the same thing that like, to go kind of cheesier when you go back to Star Trek and things like anything that has a mirror universe, um, that already is a multiversal concept,
Mhm.
and you kind of go with it. I used there. I was trying to say, going back earlier, like you always have these, the science fiction concept where like, you have branching paths every time you
Mhm.
make a decision,
Mhm.
and then who's to say that each decision is whether or not it's important enough to create its own timeline universe.
Its own main charting.
Yeah.
Because the difference of an alternate timeline is that typically in an alternate timeline, the idea is it will eventually one will go back to be in charge and
Mm-mm.
one branch disappears or is dealt with. But in a multiversal story, they
They all
all
continue to exist
so the
and continue
very
to branch out.
so the very earliest multiverses, if you think about it, were the repeating narrations of epic tales,
Mm-hmm.
where everyone would tell the story in their own spin and change things slightly.
Yeah, there is that nice little Netflix explained video
Mm-hmm.
on fairy tales, and it's fascinating how the same fairy tale archetype exists in so many different
Mm-hmm.
countries to the point that you no longer know who which came first. But
Mm-hmm.
the same thing that the multiversal theory kind of it's the same thing spinning out of control and creating infinite copies of itself in different ways. So that's kind of cool. Um, I mean, I'm not necessarily against it. It's a fundamental science fiction
Mm-hmm.
trope concept already at this point. Um, and then, but I also see like consciously how it serves a narrative function for things like the MCU and the like. And that's why I mean, with comic books needing to continually recreate itself so that it creates new entry points for new readers that is not overly burdened by years of
Mm-hmm.
continuity. um, that's just like the reality of things.
Do you prefer multiverses where the fractals or the echoes of certain personalities are more evident? Or do you prefer when they're more subtle? For example, Final Fantasy.
Okay.
There's always a Sid, right? There's little echoes that happen across games, which makes it feel like it's a multiverse thing happening. We're in Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3 are, they're all different stories, but they're all echoes of each other.
Mm.
But then you have stuff wherein they're more blatant.
Mm-mm.
So like um, the the X Men or the Marvel 2099 line, wherein oh, this is our version of a Doom story. This is our version of a Spider Man story.
I mean, I'm very straightforward as a consumer of content. I still prefer the more direct connection, and
Mm,
this ties to like what we were talking about just the other night. When you if you watch the more recent trailers for the new Matrix movie, then you have that scenario entirely. At
mm,
first, it felt like, especially on a movie level, it felt like, oh, there's homages
yes.
and winks and references to the
Mm-mm.
original series. But then the more recent trailers stress that no, these are deliberate efforts to put the
Mm.
same imagery again and again because they
Matching lines, matching visuals.
worse mirror visuals like
Yes.
of the same thing, and like I'm reaching in the mirror for the left side versus in the previous movie in the right side, all that.
Mm-mm.
I am more excited about this because then it's like then it's a choice. It's a narrative choice and I want to
Mm-mm.
see why. Whereas as opposed to when it's just references, then it just feels like
Interpretations. Yeah.
not interpretation. It's just more like it's a cash grab wink. It's
Mm.
something to reassure you. Hence, every Final Fantasy game is drastically different from the other. And there's a lot of you that is invested and wants to know what happens next.
Mm.
Like Final Fantasy VII, as powerful as a story it is, we never quite get to go anywhere. And I think that's why you have the power of things like Final Fantasy X2,
Mm-mm.
which is one of the rare direct sequels that continued the story. And
Yeah.
as much as, it wasn't universally well received, but I like the idea that we got a of actual sequel game
Mm-hmm.
that explored the consequences of the first one of
Mm.
Final Fantasy X because characters die and then
Yeah.
how do the people deal with it? Whereas true to the name of the franchise, with each being a Final Fantasy, then it always just ends with some big near world ending
Mm-hmm.
event, and like, which kind of cheapens the consequences. I mean, you're invested in the outcome, you're invested in the characters to some degree,
Mm.
but then we leave them behind, and that was always like my
Hey,
main
Jay.
challenge with the Final Fantasy franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I you end up liking particular games, but not liking all of them, and then yes, there is similarity, but then but it's not truly connective tissue between
Mm-hmm.
them. It's just like, yeah, we always get a Sid, and each Sid is drastically different. But I mean, it has no consequence. It's just a developer nod that, hey, I got a Sid gear again. Even though one time he's like a jumping cat person dragon, and then the next he's the ship. I don't know, but I think that he's the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's quaint. It's quaint, but it doesn't feel like as strong a narrative decision. So if I'm talking about multiverses in the context of a story or some sort of story framework, then I want the connections to be deliberate. I want them to I want them to have value, and then later, spin out. Hence the new Matrix movie. I'm honestly excited. I'm
Mm.
honestly excited to see what, why the repetition,
Mhm.
and why, and what it could, because everything has meaning, and I know I this makes us all sound like really old Matrix fans
Mhm.
in that sense, but because that was the feeling of the first movie,
Yes.
that we poured over everything, all the,
That every little detail had a reason for it being there.
and because by right, in things, especially in things like film, everything on screen is a choice.
Mm.
It's supposed to be a choice. It's supposed to potentially have meaning, and that's the joy of cinematic analysis and
Mhm.
understanding and critique. And you kind of want that to happen, and so there's an appreciation for stories like that, that
Mhm.
everything is a choice, and you want it to matter. And the Matrix movies, I mean, the quality varies over time, but it doesn't change the fact that everything was a choice of the Wachowskis, and they got to tell their story, and that's super exciting.
And now it's the Athenian story because it's all blue now.
Wow, I have a different face. It's different from it's different from my rom com annoyance face.
Now, the tricky part of doing multiversal stories is you do go so much larger than life. You're dealing with factors that are at such a high level that you can focus on it in a more personal level, which is what I feel has worked for many things. Na even if it's a different multiverse or it's different characters from different universes, you're still dealing with the personal stuff. Or you could do it really horribly, like it was done in the recent Doctor Who series,
Wow, we wanted to go there. Darn that Flux.
because they build up this entire story to
Division.
have this
Division is
huge
corny.
reveal, which is basically a pun that Division was in the middle of two universes.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Division, in case you didn't notice. But then
Spoilers.
in that same episode, resolve it.
Mm-mm.
Not because the characters did anything,
But because COVID happening and they couldn't shoot more episodes.
but because the plot decided to resolve it on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was super high stakes for no one who had the choice in the matter, and then have it resolved by again no one having a choice in the matter.
Wow, there are a lot of people still watching. Hey,
So that's
are you keeping up?
that's like super frustrating for how it was done,
Mm-mm.
given where it could have gone.
Mm-hmm.
They introduced all these characters. Um, they were doing the side story of the psychic who's from this point in time, of the angels attacking this town for some specific reason, for the group of companions traveling through the eras finding this point in time, and then two completely new characters we've never seen before going through the story on their own. And then in the end, we feel like none of them mattered.
Yeah.
That's such a terrible way to do it.
Well, I can only say that at least this era of Doctor Who is coming to an end. I don't know what's next, but hey, anything is possible in the multiverse. Fun things when you think about it as early multiversal explorations. You have things like He-Man and She-Ra.
Mm. Mm.
The original He-Man and She-Ra story was literally they're twins, but they were separated as children,
Mm.
and Adora She-Ra was brought to an entirely different dimension,
Mhm.
which is ruled by Hordak. But then Hordak also was like makes Skeletor his bitch and all
Mm.
that. So it's just like what?
And then you have the unofficial ones, but later turned official, Silverhawks Thundercats connections,
Mm.
wherein, you know,
Beyond sharing an animation studio.
yeah, because they were from the same studio, there was that, oh, are they the same world? Are they related? But at first, there wasn't really any connections. And then later on, you have those chance moments on the screens. Look, that's that, and that's this. And they're kind of connecting it now. There was that attempt of a dark universe wherein they tried to link up Dracula,
Oh yeah, that weird
Frankenstein,
movie effort.
The Mummy. But of course, they didn't do it with Brendan Fraser, and they tried to do it with Tom Cruise, and that's why it was doomed to fail.
So I mean, there's like it's a lot of hit and miss. It's a lot of hit and miss, and ultimately, especially when you think about movies, it's a lot of pushing for. There is a there are narrative reasons to do it. There are excuse me commercial reasons to do it. And you just kind of live with it.
Hmm.
What's your I don't know favorite multiversal moment crossover thing?
I think for that, I'll still go back to comics.
Okay.
Because admittedly, um, stuff like Planetary
Okay.
really tried to do it differently.
Hmm.
In the comic series Planetary, we have a bunch of people who are like superheroes, but the tagline itself is archaeologists of the unknown,
Mm-mm.
which makes it so strange a concept. And
They
that's because
investigate mysteries,
they investigate mysteries, excuse me,
enigmas.
despite having superpowers. And you start to realize as you read them that the mysteries are different facets of popular fiction through time.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas they in a in a in a in a one shot issue separate from the main story arc, they re-explored the Hulk story, um, if it went a certain way. In another issue that again was separate from the main storyline, they encountered Batman and the many variations of Batman through the timelines in that single issue. But then in the main line itself, they sort of tried to have a world wherein what if all the fictional story universes were real and happening? So you had an issue about Godzilla, you had an issue about Hong Kong vengeful ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also had an issue that pretty much dissected the entire Vertigo timeline of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s
Mm-mm.
into one story arc. And it was very well done for that type of a story without having to bash you in the head, because the characters themselves never knew
Yes.
it was different universes in that way.
Yes.
Whereas you as a reader, you're like reading one issue and thinking, oh wow, this is the Long Ranger myth approached in a different way. And then when you read the next issue, wait, Godzilla? They're touching on Godzilla? And then the next one, these are the Avengers. And that was just such a beautiful moment for me.
Okay. Mark's here and he cites, the time traveler paradox sequence at the end of Planetary. It was very clever. It's still one of my favorite interpretations of time travel,
And it makes
and it
sense.
was so
I'm
visually well
I'm
done.
I'm so impressed that they thought of that, given all the time. I mean, maybe it's not the first one, but it was such a good
It,
idea that I'm surprised I didn't encounter it
for
sooner.
popular
Someone else.
fiction, largely defined by Back to the Future, which does not make sense. You know.
Yeah, because most time travel stories, the moment you can travel in time, you can travel anytime.
Yeah.
Here, it establishes that time travel was impossible until the point it can be invented, and that makes it the furthest you can go back
And which just makes it a very popular place to go
to
because
visit.
everybody wants to see the
The
beginning of time
yeah,
travel.
and that was such a brilliant piece of writing, and then illustrated so well. Pa.
And then for what it's worth, though, the very first Spider Verse crossover, I still super enjoyed.
Mhm.
I still super enjoyed
And you're not
because
talking about the movie,
no, no,
just
no,
so
no.
that people know.
The original comic book crossover, Dan Slott era of writing, and when it first crossed things over, created these different incarnations of Spider-Man.
Mhm.
And I think your biggest squee moments was the pseudo important feeling of making things canon, quote unquote. Hence things like Japanese Spider-Man and
Mhm.
Leopardon becoming tied into the comics, thus making it real, which is
Mhm.
like, oh my god, that's amazing. And that's why, like, to some degree, on a similar, like, weird things coming into a comic book level, feeling like a multiverse, even things as basic as Firestar becoming a character in the comics when
Mm.
she was only a cartoon character,
And
or
somehow still having microwave powers.
and then later becoming a mutant, and then things like even just Harley Quinn, who is
Mm.
now a ridiculously popular DC character,
Yes.
but she started as a Batman the animated series character who got brought back into the comics and then made into the live action movies and whatnot. So it's those are like subtle
Mhm.
multiversal moments I like, and I think because it served a greater narrative and it 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 works out.
I wonder if for me, my fascination with the multiverse type of storylines is because it still goes back to the pulp roots and Defenders of the Earth.
Defenders of the Earth, Defenders.
Because when Defenders of the Earth came out back in the early 80s, well, late 80s, it was such a confusing set of heroes on screen to look at.
Mm-hmm.
You had a magician, you had the Phantom, you had someone who looked sci-fi because he was in a
He's
spot.
Flash
Yeah, but
Gordon.
you know he was in this bodysuit and stuff. But then you had someone in a polo shirt, and so it was such a dissonance of characters to
No,
look at.
let's be honest. The one who didn't make sense was Lothar. I'm so sorry, but Lothar was just he's tough, right?
Yep.
Lothar.
So you have this group that just defies what you've gotten used to,
Mm-mm.
all in one group. And while I have to admit I can barely remember the stories for the life of me, it
Defenders of
was
the
a
Earth,
powerful
Defenders.
impact of fascination to watch that story before. And they were already dealing with world-threatening crises.
And always, who's the villain here? Was it the not the Mandarin? No,
Ming.
Ming the Merciless.
Mhm.
Who was the Flash Gordon villain? I
Mhm.
mean, sure there were others, but only Ming mattered. Okay. Mark was like headcanon moment. I always thought the Phantom's daughter in Defenders of the Earth was Kit Walker's aunt in the Phantom 2040. Who knows, right? Anything's possible.
I always thought that they eventually die out, and that's where the Planeteers come in.
Okay.
That was like my head canon for a while as a kid.
Defenders of the Earth,
Na parang
Defenders.
when the Defenders of the Earth finally died, a bunch of kids inherited these roles.
Did you ever play pretend in school to try to play Defenders of the Earth?
No,
I
I
actually
didn't have that many friends who knew the show.
I reached that point, or maybe it wasn't. We were all playing Defenders of the Earth, but I chose to be Mandrake the Magician. And when I had to explain what he would do, which was like he cheats because he does all these illusions. So yeah, like yeah, I'm
You
going to.
also did magic tricks on here.
I literally did magic tricks. I had a top hat. So yes, I
Well,
was
my
Magic the
kuya and I did used to play Lego a lot, and with our Lego we did everything from Mask to Transformers to Spiral Zone, Spiral Zone.
Toby is still like trying to keep the fire alive for Spiral Zone because God, that
If
cartoon
I
was dark.
ever if I ever become friends with some producer or what, I'll be like, make me a Spiral Zone movie. I don't know how I'll fund it, but I want a Spiral Zone movie.
Mark says don't want to mention multiversal concept in 45 years of
Okay,
Super Sentai.
that I have to admit is a I want to get into it.
That's awesome.
I've tried watching and I enjoy them. And I am always overwhelmed at how many I want. I mean, if you really go back, and we're not just talking about the main Sentai group, which is what most people know as Power Rangers. But if you really go back to all the other Sentai groups
Things
prior,
things locally known as like Star Rangers or something, Star Avengers,
yeah, you
and
have you have you have the earlier
the one with the
groups.
playing card symbols, and then yeah, Bioman,
Yeah, so
Maskman.
you have Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger, you have the JAKQ Nekken Kitya, and so on and so forth. I keep wanting to go back through all of it, but I'm also getting overwhelmed because there's so
Oh,
many.
Mark says Super Sentai and Kamen Rider handle multiverse like DC Marvel crossovers. They happen, but they didn't happen. Oh, so it's like when doctors intersect because the whole thing about the whatever Blipovich effect that when you meet your own version, your own future time
Mm.
incarnation, you cannot retain the memory of this encounter, and thus every time you have the three doctors, the five doctors, day of the doctor,
They somehow
they
have to
met, but they
forget.
also have they never remember meeting.
Mm.
They also cross over with Space Sheriff, Cider, and Metal Heroes. Oh wow, okay, cool.
And then sometimes I wonder if
Defenders of
indirectly
Earth.
multiverse moments are happening with certain video games. For example, I doubt the entire Super Mario Brothers line is one universe,
Mm, which is an easier way to
right?
explain
Because
Mario's
Paper
very.
Mario doesn't make sense if you compare it to Super Mario Brothers. Then we of course have Super Mario Brothers 3 and its Japanese um, distant relative, cousin, sibling from another mother, the one where you get to play Toad, Princess, Mario, and which
Mm-mm.
feels like a completely different animal. So
And go back to the original Super Mario Brothers
and then you
when
have
we were just dealing with pipe
and
monsters.
then you have Super Mario Brothers Galaxy and all this and that. So these have to be multiverses. I doubt they're all happening to the same Mario, right? Because it's not like, let's say,
I
Mega
like
Man.
I like that Mario where you could play Toad and Princess, and then you have the ridiculous thing of when Toad eats a mushroom and he gets bigger. Like
And
what
then
just happened?
you have those dinosaurs that spit eggs,
Yeah.
and then you can land on the egg that's flying and grab it midair.
And then you'd flip. Oh my god, that was awesome. That was awesome.
But compare it to, let's say, Zelda, which we know is meant to be a singular, um, not linear, but singular storyline that does jump back and forth through time and all this and that. But
Mhm.
it's meant to be like one
It's
interconnected
still
story.
yeah.
Or Mega Man, which Rockman, which also is intended to be a singular story where it's somewhere you jump into fast.
Although once you get to like the Mega Man X stuff, then it gets like a little confusing.
Mm.
With that with yeah when the gameplay changed, it got very confusing.
Castlevania, I know, is also meant to be just one singular storyline.
Mark shares that for the Sentai stuff, they exist in the same space only for the movie. They'll remember meeting, but only if fan service or the script needs it.
Mm.
Like when two characters played by the same actor meet up. Yes, it happened in Super Sentai movies. That's crazy.
See, that's why we really have to get into it. And if you watch
There's so
those
much
clips now,
content.
wherein you have all the
We're watching
reds,
Hometown Cha Cha Cha.
remember when there was
Cha cha
a
cha.
what was his name? When supposedly Glee, American Horror Story, and all that were also just one universe.
Oh, the Ryan Murphy universe. Yeah, see, Mega Man can host its own unit multiverse. Mega Man X, Mega Man Legends.
Mm.
We're just like, what are you? Okay. Wow, this is long, so we should probably wrap up though. It's like it's getting late, and we are going well off the deep end of like crazy
Mm.
things.
So Marvel still sticks to the let's reset the universe and start over.
I think that's a comic book industry
It's the
decision.
cleanest way to maintain your fan base and maintain your characters.
Yes.
It also allows you to kill off major ones. I see you, Logan, Death of Logan, and then bring them back somehow later on. DC went bolder. They all exist, even the ones that were destroyed.
Hey, they're only saying they all exist now. Before they tried to
Yeah, yeah,
like this is you know.
but they've gone on the record, meaning on printed pages, to say everything exists. So that means even DC on TV are universes that the comic line can connect with, and so on and
Mm-mm.
so forth. It's that sort of declaration.
Mm-mm.
So that's like, I think they were calling it hyper universe or something, because they have hyper time and all.
That shouldn't be allowed to stick. Stop it, DC. Stop it.
But before all of them, there was the Rifts RPG that had the Megaverse, because the Rifts RPG released games based on genre, and you can mix and match them all.
Yeah, or you can just go with like if you don't want to invest in too much system, then just look up that old John Wick video for playing the Flux, where literally you just had
Allows
different.
you to play any RPG together.
Yeah, you just had character sheets from different RPGs, and
Mm.
then you could flip depending on whatever. Decent connective
So
tissue.
my wrap up is what do you think is the next biggest multiverse concept they could think of? Because we already have TV and movies are connected, and we've even had TV shows that have had movies. So that's no longer really the breaking ground now.
Man, because okay, then you have I think especially when you think of cross property, because you have even silly things like remember Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to make it the biggest thing ever in Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
life. It had novels, it had comic books, it had a video
Mm-hmm.
game, all of this to try to build this connected story. But it was still one universe. But the little things like that. And if you want to try to push it across, I don't know. I mean,
Matrix did the same thing with
Matrix
Enter the
had
Matrix and
yeah, where you had to, God damn it, we played that game was hard. Enter
and
the Matrix was a
supposedly
hard
and then
game.
there was the MMO also, which
Yeah.
supposedly is the reason why we don't see Morpheus
Mm-hmm.
in the upcoming movie
Mm-hmm.
because in the MMO Morpheus dies.
But we still have a Morpheus analog because deja vu is a sign that the system has made
I
changes.
still really
It's such a
feel
power, guys.
I
You gotta watch that
yeah
Matrix plug. It's 1 minute. It's 1 minute of Carrie Ann Moss repeatedly reminding you of what deja vu is in the Matrix universe, and it's just it's a good
it's
it's a
very
good primer to put you in the mindset to think about this movie.
if you're afraid because you saw the Bill and Ted movie, this is worlds apart.
Mm.
Because the Bill and Ted movie, when we saw the trailer for Bill and Ted
Well,
coming
we knew
back,
it wasn't going to be
we
great.
felt cringy.
Yes, yes, yes.
It felt
And then we
very
watched it, and then like I
we really
regretted
yeah.
watching it. Okay.
This one very promising, very exciting.
Okay, but to be fair, I didn't feel this way after the first trailer.
Yeah,
The first trailer is
was
like you're defensive.
yeah, the first trailer felt me.
Yeah. But then after the deja vu trailer and then the most recent trailer, it's like, oh crap.
Let's hope they deliver.
Oh crap.
And well,
And the Matrix is obviously going to be a depiction of a true metaverse multiversal concept. We bring both together. The Matrix is
yeah,
everything.
because keep in mind that the Matrix movies do try to capture what the internet is understood to be,
Yes. Yes.
and then
It
pushes
was a
it.
reflection of the time of production.
So when the earlier Matrix movies were made, they tried to capture what the ideals or ideas of the internet were at the time.
Anonymity,
So now it
freedom.
kind of makes you excited to see where it will go.
Wachowski is visionary.
And
I fully embrace this label that the visionary Wachowski.
and this is the closest thing we'll have to more Sense8 like material.
Also
miss-
Wachowski.
I miss Sense8.
I miss Sensei.
We need Sense8 to come back. Hopefully, this will be a big success enough that there'll be enough clout to push for Sense8 back.
If not, there's that Headspace RPG that we played that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So somewhere out there, Baduy Pride is a conglomerate with like 72 different channels, and
Why?
that's why we're not in that universe. In this universe, we have Alma staring at us with darkness, eyes of darkness in it. Mark shares recent tech developments changed. Having just one simulation by the machines doesn't make sense.
That's true. They would build redundancy into that system.
Actually, the biggest thing was, if machines were that efficient, they just make their own sources of power.
No, because remember they blacked out the sun, which is the primary like fallback
Yeah,
source.
but that's the point. If you're getting it from carbon life forms anyway.
It does feel like humans are very inefficient battery sources. I
Yeah.
mean, like, why not just geothermal?
Yeah. Maybe
But
that's
still excited.
maybe that's what this one will be. Okay. So yeah, that is our episode on Metaverses and Multiverses. This is the most we've had in quite a while. Thank you, viewers, for joining us tonight. We hope to see you again next time.
And we hope you also leave comments too. We appreciate when you get to join the conversation. But hey, if you just like creepily watching along, that's cool too.
But definitely, Baduy Pride
we are content.
seems to be adapting a 2 episode a week pattern for the time being.
Oh my god, Mark says the machines because are mining crypto. That's the problem with the Matrix.
Oh, you know what? I'm now suddenly not sure how I'll feel about punny lines like that.
Oh,
Like if they're fighting and then I can't stop it. You'll have to blockchain or something. Because you know how they kind of wanted to use terms in the earlier movies.
But it reflected like our cheesy cyberspace understanding
Exactly.
of things.
But will it click now the way we kind of
It's
enjoy?
like us playing Netrunner.
That's different. That's private. We're in
Oh my
public.
god. Okay, so if you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, fill up the Google form at bit.ly Baduy Pride Ideas. You can follow us on Twitter, Altobino Shade, RG
You
Sunico.
could also check out our blog, budaypride.com, for all the previous episodes and stuff about us.
So we're gonna make a run on the end of this episode. If you have comments or other things you want to share, leave them in the comment section below. And be sure to subscribe for notifications, whether Facebook or YouTube, so you don't miss our next live stream. Once again, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Toby.
And
This
this
is
is
Baduy
Baduy
Pride.
Pride. Good night, everyone.
Thanks for watching.